Ladies and gentlemen, a correction on the Capitalism series. It turns out that Harriman, who we heard about in the J.J. Hill section, Harriman was not a member of the Big Four, as I mentioned off the cuff. He was in California, but the Big Four, as Legendre 007, Stuart Hayashi points out in a message he sent to me, the Big Four consisted of Governor Leland Stanford, Collis Potter Huntington, Mark Hopkins, and Charles Crocker. So he says that that's at wikipedia.org, the wiki/the Big Four. And he says a little bit more about that, but we might go into the Big Four later, so we won't visit that right now. Just wanted to enter that correction for anyone who wasn't aware of the real fact, and I may have left them deluded. From How Capitalism Saved America by Tom Dilorenzo, author of The Real Lincoln. I'm going to take two excerpts consisting of about 5 pages from his 7th chapter. It's page 110, The Truth About Robber Barons. And we're going to start 5 paragraphs down. Quote, "In some cases, of course, the entrepreneurs commonly labeled robber barons did indeed profit by exploiting American customers, but these were not market entrepreneurs. For example, Leland Stanford, a former government and U.S. Senator from California, used his political connections to have the state pass laws prohibiting competition for his Central Pacific Railroad." By the way, we're listening to Tchaikovsky in the background if you're interested. And he and his business partners profited from this monopoly scheme. Unfortunately, the resentment that this naturally generated among the public was unfairly directed at other entrepreneurs who succeeded in the railroad industry without political interference that tilted the playing field. Thanks to historians who fail to or refuse to make this crucial distinction between people who are successful in industry by their sheer pluck and luck and people who are successful by bringing the government in. Thanks to historians who fail to make this crucial distinction, many Americans have an inaccurate view of American capitalism. Mr. Dilorenzo starts a section here called How to Build a Railroad. We're actually going to skip that because it's actually a treatment of James J. Hill, who we've already visited in length. But we are going to take just a bit out of the story about Hill here, so it is sort of going to be expanding on the story we looked at by Hill before. Now, we started with my favorite, Hill. Then we went chronologically to John Jacob Astor. Now we're just going to do some robber barons in general. Then we're going to look at the chemical company in the early 1900s. We're going to take a rather long look at John D. Rockefeller. Then we'll have some conclusions to draw about these robber barons, won't we? So right now, Dilorenzo is telling us you have to give credit to the people who didn't bring the government in on their side. And you have to scorn the people who did. So he says that's got to be one of our considerations when we're looking at the history of the robber barons. Now we're going to skip to page 114. We already know James J. Hill was building the Great Northern Railroad across the very top of the nation, right up by the Canadian border. Quote, "Hill's rates fell steadily, and when farmers began complaining about the lack of grain storage space, he instructed his company managers to build large storage facilities near his rail depots. He refused to join in attempts at cartel price fixing." Now listen to this. Everyone's worried, what if the private economy produced a bunch of people who get together and set the price of bacon or the price of bread, and they're the only people who sell bacon or bread or whichever, and they raise the price on their product. Well, one of two things would happen. Either, this is a free economy we're talking about, either someone else would come in and start producing bacon and selling at a lower price, or people would stop buying bacon as much. People would buy more chicken. It would be a boon for the chicken farms. Or they would buy more, sausage or whatever. So your product is not only in competition with other products in its price level and its category, You know, that's what everyone's worried about, is what if someone gets hold of a whole category, all bacon or all tires or all oil? What if someone did get hold of the price of all oil? Our world is dependent on petroleum. Oh my God, what would we do if everybody had to pay a higher price for oil? We would drive electric cars and build nuclear power plants. Any given product is in competition with all other products and services in the economy. Not just the other products in its little niche or category. All the products and services in the entire economy are competing for every single dollar available in that economy. That's a free economy. Now, Hill was one of the people who wrecked this whole theory. All these, like the people walking around that we talk to today, who say, what if capitalism fixed prices? A lot of the people who ran these companies thought, you know, we ought to get together and fix prices. You know? So they did. Now, Hill is one of the people who is just, he'll always pop out of the woodwork. Anytime you have a situation where you need everybody to cooperate and get on teamwork together, he's just going to walk away, go over and do his thing. And you'll be like, hey, we need everybody. And he's like, you shut up. He doesn't care. So he would wreck these price agreements, just destroy them. They would all say, okay, we're going to demand $2 a ton mile for freight coming out of Milwaukee. So Hill charges $1 per ton freight, takes all their business. Damn Hill. So they got to cut back down. So anytime a group gets together and sets the price, somebody's going to come in either inside that group's niche category, like automobiles. If all the automobiles get together and they raise the price of automobiles, then someone's going to come in and start selling automobiles. Or trains and planes and buses are going to become more used. Automobiles are being jacked up artificially by the greedy, selfish capitalists, and look what happens, they lose business. So it's not really greedy and selfish of them. It's actually short-ranged. They think they can get something for nothing. Let's all just get together and agree to raise our price. Yeah, that'll raise our productivity and wealth. Hill refused to join in attempts at cartel price fixing, and in fact gloried in the role of rate slasher and disruptor of pooling agreements, writes historian Burton Folsom. So that's from Burton Folsom. You might look into him a bit more. After all, he knew that monopolistic pricing would have been an act of killing the goose that lays the golden egg. Like I just said, let's all raise our prices. Yeah, that's going to increase our productivity. No, you don't increase your productivity by raising your price. Now, as we've already seen, Hill was very savvy to this. He lowered his price in order to, his price on freight or whatever. He lowered his price in order to keep more money in the farmers' hands, because he knew the more money the farmers had, the more they were going to be able to do with it, the more productive they were going to be, and the more they were going to need his services as the railroad. So, in building his transcontinental railroad from 1886 to 1893, Hill applied the same strategy he had in building the St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Manitoba. Careful building of the road combined with economic cultivation of nearby communities. He always built for durability and efficiency. Now I pause here just to say that this is a fantastic instance of capitalism. An area of the country that's underdeveloped, an area of the country that's poor, a backwater, not a lot of people, and the people who are there don't have very many services available. That is not the fault of capitalism. It just inherited that. But look what capitalism does with that. This area that's uninhabited and poor is actually a potential resource center for a genius. Right? That he looks at that and he says, look, nobody's in there. No competition. I can go in there and have branch lines in 17 different towns. I can run the entire economy myself until someone comes in and starts competing with me. So he will actually go in and develop the economic aegis of a region just so that he'll have business. Now, you can say, oh, well, he settles all these people and then he charges high prices on their travel. Yeah, that's not true. The very fact that he is so long-minded, so long-distance minded, that he's going to try to settle and develop this region means he's going to keep his prices and stuff low. And if he does raise his prices high, so what? Then that's an opportunity for another railroad to come in. You know? It just doesn't. You've got to let freedom happen. You can't let the government do stuff. Look how a genius turns a sparsely populated region with virtually no development into a massive economic region. Because it's a resource. He sees it as a resource. Anything that you can turn into productivity is a resource. Oil didn't used to be a resource. We'll be taking a long look at oil.